everybody, Coach Jared here from Fire Fitness Camp Fond du Lac. Today we're going to talk about that overhead squat assessment. Again, this time we're going to talk about your knees, what your knees do, right? If you don't know what an overhead squat assessment is, go check out our previous video that covered it generally, right? Today we're going to talk about what happens if your knees go in or out. So if you're looking at yourself straight on, your knees are either falling in or pushing out. That's a problem because your knees are supposed to track very strictly straight out and in. They're not designed to go in or out at all. It's just going to slowly wear down your knees. It's going to slowly cause some arthritis to build up. It's not good. We don't want that to happen. If you see it happening to yourself, these are some things that you could do to correct it. First one we're going to cover if they fall in. That's something that I see more often than if they're pushing out. And it's really going to wear down the insides of your knees. Some things that you can stretch is your adductors. Everything that's going to pull your knees in should be stretched. Biggest one is your adductors or your inner thigh. My favorite adductor stretch is just getting a stool, maybe a table or a chair, putting your foot up, and then leaning into it. Just really pushing it in. Should feel a good stretch on the inner thigh. I like putting my foot up. You can do it on the ground as well and just lean to the side. I like putting my foot up. I think it adds to that stretch a little bit. Also, it really cues that your foot is straight, pointed forward. I don't really want my foot pointed up because I'm going to change the stretch. And now I'm stretching more in my hamstrings. So I want my foot pointed forward when I'm stretching my inner thigh. Next big stretch is my hamstrings. Hamstring stretch.
How long do you want to stretch that for, Jared?
Oh, hey, great question, Missy. I'm going to hold that stretch for like 30-ish seconds. I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to go back as close to 3 times. If you don't have enough time to go back and forth 3 times, hey, that's okay. Whatever you got time for is great. Second stretch I'm going to go through is a hamstring stretch, which seems weird, but some hamstrings, because the hamstring isn't all one muscle, right? Some hamstrings are going to help pull your knee in. So I'm going to, biggest one here is just toe touch. Right? That's a great one. Get both legs at the same time. Something that I recommend when you're doing a toe touch is to puff your chest out. So I actually got my back nice and flat. I'm bent over as if I'm going to do a row, but I'm going to lock my knees out. And now I can't reach my toes, but I'm still getting a really aggressive stretch. Right? If I round my back, I can go all the way down to the ground, and I'm actually barely stretching. So puffing your chest out and flattening your back is a way better way to get a more aggressive stretch on your hamstrings, while still being able to do both legs at the same time. Save some time. And then a TFL stretch. TFL is a weird muscle you might not have heard of. It's a small muscle that connects your front of your hip to your IT band, and that can yank your knee in and turn it a little bit. And it's a big problem for a lot of runners. So if you're a runner, might be something that you have problems with or have experienced problems with in the past. What I'm going to do to stretch it, if I want to stretch my right side, I'm going to go down to a kneeling position with my right knee on the ground. And I'm actually going to take my knee and I'm going to cross it behind my heel. If I can get a little bit farther over, that's great. I'm going to flatten my back, tuck my tailbone, and I'm going to push this hip out to my right. And there I'm getting a good stretch right here, a little bit on my oblique. If you need something right over here to steady yourself, that's great. If you can, reach up overhead. That's just going to add to the stretch. Yeah, it's good. And then, as always, when I'm dealing with corrective exercise, I'm going to have some stretches and then also some exercises to strengthen the other side of my body. And I want to strengthen my abductors, glute medius and glute medius, right at the sides of my hips. Those are going to help keep my knees tracking straight up and down. And a great exercise to strengthen those, I'm just going to put one of these here fancy ankle bands around my ankles. There's 1,000,000,001 different exercises you can do to help strengthen your hip stabilizers or your smaller glutes. This is my favorite. I'm just going to stand with one foot planted, and this foot is just going to kick as high as I can out to the side. If you need something to steady yourself, hey, that's A-okay. Otherwise, challenge that balance as well. Biggest thing, I'm leading with my heel. Right, my heel's coming straight out, not my toe. If I turn, my toe's coming up. You see that? My toe's coming up. I'm actually strengthening TFL, which is a muscle that I want to lengthen. Right, so don't lead with your toe, lead with your heel. Too easy. Now let's go over if your knees go out. So if you have the opposite problem, your knees go push outwards, different set of muscles that I want to stretch. Start with piriformis. Piriformis is a small muscle in your glute, and it just yanks this way. Pulls your hip, your foot this way out, and turns it. Big, good piriformis stretch. My favorite piriformis stretch is laying on the ground. I'm going to bring my knee, and I'm just going to hug it to my opposite shoulder. Real easy, and I'm getting a good stretch right in that deep glute. Another one, TFL. Again, TFL's on the list again for the opposite problem. It's weird, but TFL can pull in two different ways depending on your situation, right? It's always good to have TFL nice and loose, especially if you're a runner. So, same TFL stretch as before. An adductor stretch. An abductor stretch. So those muscles that we were strengthening before, in this situation, I want to loosen up. So my favorite abductor stretch is right here. Find a little bit of incline. I'm going to cross my foot out so it's in a T. I'm just going to press my hips down to the ground. I'm trying to square them as best as I can. I'm getting a real good stretch on the outside of my hip. I'm going to do the other side so you can see the other way. See, my foot is right underneath my hip, and I just let my hips fall as best I can. I'm going to get a real good stretch right in the side of my hip. And then hamstrings. Again, the same hamstring stretch. Again, there's more than one hamstrings in the back of your thigh. Some might pull one way, some might pull the other. If they're not all the same length, they're going to pull in different ways. So if you just go in a general hamstring stretch, you're going to stretch all of them, and that's going to help get them all the same length. So just a general hamstring stretch is awesome. And now to strengthen, I want to strengthen my adductors, adduction. I want to strengthen my adductions. So I'm going to grab that handy dandy ankle band. I've added this anchored to this here medicine ball rack. And all I'm doing, I got good tension on, and I'm going to pull my foot to my other one. Again, my toes are pointed straight forward. Real important when you're training an AB or adduction. My toes are pointed straight forward, and I'm just adding to the rest of my body. Right? I want to hold that, let it down nice and easy, and then right back up. So those are some general things you can do if your knees turn in or out on an overhead squat. Stay tuned. We'll have more videos about different instances and what you see in your overhead squat. Check it out.